Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Samp&Chance. I'm your host, Bobby Sampson. Up there in that corner is my man, Chance Michaels, the man with the master plan. And right below us, one of boxing's true good guys, Mr. Ronny Rios himself, direct from the Golden Boy stable. Ronny, thank you for coming on the show tonight. It's a pleasure, it's an honor, and it's a privilege.
Thank you guys for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to do a podcast, especially with somebody new. I think this might be our first time doing it, correct?
Yeah,
Correct.
absolutely. And I don't know if you've ever done a podcast with a couple of dudes from Canada, but this is the first here for you then as well.
Cool, man. What part of Canada are you guys from?
We're on the West Coast, man. We're just above you in Vancouver.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my wife and I wanted to go to Vancouver a couple years back, but I think at that time that's when we fought. I want to say Jason, no, not Jason Velez. Who was it when we fought? It was a pretty big fight, so we had to cancel our trip.
Well, brother man, the invitation is open. If you ever decide to come up to Vancouver,
Thank you,
we
thank
will definitely take care of you, show you around, and make sure you're 100% comfortable in our city.
I appreciate it, man. I'm gonna take you guys up on that offer.
And I hope you do. We don't throw out offers without hoping that you go take us up on it.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Like I
Fantastic.
said, really appreciate the hospitality that you guys are giving me today.
Absolutely. No, thank you for giving us your time as well. So, Ronnie, let's start this off right. I guess the one question most people start with is how did you get into boxing? I'm going to change it up a little bit and say, what magazine did you pick up that got you interested in boxing? And what heavyweight fight did you watch that got you into boxing?
That's funny because the first one I think that I read was a KO magazine of Vernon Forrest versus Sugar Shane Mosley Part 2. And I remember I looked at the names, I was like, man, those are some cool names. I was like, man. And I picked it up and I read the centerfold, and obviously, there was part two, so they already had like Sugar Shane Mosley already had his previous loss, so I started reading about it, and then actually the first heavyweight fight that I ever saw was Fresno Kendo versus Chris Bird, I think,
Yeah.
and then the first actual fight that I saw like from start to finish was Floyd Mayweather versus Jose Luis Castillo Part 2.
Oh, wow. And that
Yeah.
that was it, eh? You were in?
I was hooked, man. I was real hooked. And then after that, I started going to the boxing gym. And then I remember they started telling me about competing in the amateurs.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were talking about like the silver gloves, ringside, junior gold gloves. I remember Mary Lara, she's like the one in charge of TKO. She
Yeah.
used to have a bunch of the bouts from previous times. And I remember I started reading all the names. I studied the matchups and stuff like that. So I kept seeing the same people over and over again. And I kept saying, like, I want to fight this guy, I want to fight that guy, because he won this, he won this. And that was always about challenging myself and fighting the best. And I've always continued to do that ever since then.
Awesome.
So, Ronnie, who were some of your favorite fighters watching growing up?
I used to like the fast guys like Floyd Mayweather, Sugar Shane Mosley. I used to like I don't know if you guys ever seen Meldrick Taylor.
Yeah.
Yeah, Meldrick Taylor, Sugar Ray Leonard, Julio Cesar Chavez. I was a big fan of Julio Cesar Chavez, Marco Antonio Barrera, Eric Morales, Oscar De La Hoya. I remember the first time I ever saw Oscar De La Hoya fight. I want to say it was Yuri Boy Campas. I was like, oh man, I was like, that was a good fight.
Yeah, I was raised with Oscar predominantly. I mean, for myself personally, I go right back for me, it's Hagler. Hagler is my hero.
Oh yeah, that guy was blue collar workaholic.
Oh, he was my hero. My first fight that I ever watched. I'm not trying to make myself sound old, but I think it was a tape delay or something, or it was taped fight, but it was Hearns Hagler, and it was on ABC Wide World of Sport Saturday morning. And my dad made me watch it, and I was hooked. I just fell in love with boxing at that point, and it was just like, that was it for me. Ronnie, I have this one question for you. One thing what we try to do here is like we talk about psychology a lot. That's
Okay.
kind of our focus. We want to talk about the psychology of boxing, and having you on here, I'd love to pick your brain a little bit about that. What kind of psychology do you go into a fight with? Or is it different from fight to fight?
It's different from fight to fight, and it's also different the way you prepare for it. If you prepare yourself real good, then obviously you're gonna go into a fight a lot more confident than than looking back and like, man, I could have done this different, I could have done that. And I noticed for me personally, the thing that really stands out about my good camps was the eating habits. Because as a fighter, you gotta be in tip top shape. And if you're eating junk food, then
Yeah.
obviously you don't feel it in the ring, you'll feel it in the gym, you'll feel it in your runs.
Right.
So overall, I think to me that's one of the most important parts, because when you go into a cap, you want to be about 10, 13, 14 pounds over. So when you start working hard, it starts coming off easily.
Okay. What's your walking around weight then before a fight?
Before a fight, I used to be like around 136 to 130, 140. Yeah.
And
then
you fight at 122, correct?
I fought at 126 and then I dropped
126.
down to 122. Yeah.
Wow. Why the drop? Wouldn't that be harder?
I just felt like I was smaller than all these other fighters, and I just felt like if I disciplined myself more and worked out harder, I could make it. There's no chance I would ever make it. I would make 122 ever again.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. With your walk around weight at 135, would you ever have considered fighting at that weight, or this wouldn't have worked for you?
No, I think I would. I think ideally I would fight 126.
Oh,
That would be
126.
yeah,
Okay.
126. As of right now, I am kind of like retired, but you never know in the future. Right now, I'm just trying to get in the best possible shape for my little baby girl comes,
Hmm.
and then you never know. Sometimes as a fighter, you always get that itch and you wanna see where you stand.
So the door isn't closed yet.
I mean, as of right now, it kind of is, but then back of your mind, you always want to wonder. You always want to wonder, like, how far can it go? If I obviously just put this loss behind me, because as a fighter, that's the hardest thing to ever put behind you is a loss, especially when the referee stops the fight. You never want to go out like that. It's like, damn.
No,
You
100%.
ask yourself, do I want to
Yeah.
just call it a career and end my career like this, or do I want to come back and just give it one last hard try?
Now, sorry, I just want to segue into this because this kind of walks right into this next question I have for you. So I watched your fight with Roy Tapia when he had his red hair.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I was watching that, and I noticed that you beat the shit out of his body, and you definitely you did a number on him. Now, the reason I bring this particular fight up is in regards to retiring and whatnot. The commentators were saying in that fight that beforehand, I think Roy was looking to retire, and you talked him out of it,
Yeah.
and then you kicked his ass. So
So the thing is, I believe him and we had spoken outside the Belasco Theater after fights,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Hey, what's up?" Because obviously we knew each other in the amateurs. I was like, "Hey,
Yeah.
what's up, dude?" He's like, "How you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I lost like a fight or two ago," and it's like, "I'm calling it quits." And I was like, "Oh, you know what, man? He's like, if you want to call it quits, go ahead. But if you feel like he can still compete," I was like, "just give it all you got, man." And then he decided to come back out of retirement, and then we did have that fight, and then obviously he retired for good. And it's been a couple of years since that fight.
Yeah. No, I just thought it was a really interesting dynamic because I know on a podcast that you did about 4 or 5 months ago, you mentioned that, yeah, you were retired. So I was going to ask you, are you officially retired now? But you kind of answered that for us already.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like as a fighter, I do have a couple things going on that are steady,
Mhm.
and obviously it's bringing money to the table, but it's just you always just boxing for me was my first love.
Yeah.
I used to sleep, breathe it, eat it all the time, and as a fighter, you just for me necessarily, I don't miss the attention. I don't miss the take a picture, this and that. I miss the competition. I
Mhm.
miss the waking up. And it's funny that you say that because even to this day, I still wake up early to go run, like at 6:30 in the morning.
Mhm.
And I literally just got out of the gym right now, second workout. And so your mind starts to play with you, and it's like I always tell my wife, if I can get down in weight to a certain weight, I want to see if I do spar how I feel, because as a fighter you also got to be realistic. You got to be truthful to yourself, and if you're
Mhm.
not doing good, then obviously you don't need to keep going forward.
Mhm. Mhm.
Ronnie, what are some of your most memorable fights that stand out for you?
I think the Diego De Loya fight stands out the most, not because of the fight itself, but because prior to that fight, I was financially struggling. My wife and I, we were like financially struggling. It seemed like a roller coaster going down. We were never gonna recover, like financial. After the previous fight, after the Azal fight, a lot of my so-called friends stopped talking to me. So I had a lot of friends. I had a lot of friends that weren't friends anymore. I was in a hard pickle financially, and I was depressed after the Azal fight. I was down. Sorry, guys, my dog. And I was so when they stopped the fight, to me that was like, man, I was like, all that hard work that I put in, all that sacrifice I put in, finally paid off.
Yeah, that was back in March 9th, right? When you fought him.
March, I want to say June or July, July 9th.
Which fight are we talking about? Sorry.
De La Hoya.
Diego de
Oh,
la,
the De La Hoya. Sorry, that was July 13th, 2019.
yeah, because I remember I'm really big on 4th of July,
Yeah.
and I like to buy fireworks. And I remember prior to that fight, like I said, I was broke, so I couldn't buy any fireworks. And I was like, man, this sucks. I don't know, I can't buy any fireworks. And it drove me more. It made me want it even more.
100%, 100%. And that kind of comes back to the psychology again, right?
Of course,
The
as a fighter,
mindset.
yeah, you gotta. I think you have to control the nerves. You gotta really want it, but at the same time, this sport's very very. I think it's 90% more mental than it is physical.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Let's talk about sacrifice. How did that play for you in your role?
Sacrifices, that's huge. And when I say sacrifice is going to bed early, not spending time with your family, not eating what you want to eat, sticking to water and Gatorade. That's sacrifice for 8 to 10, 12 weeks. That's it's pretty hard.
But life in general, like even like from your debut, from the amateur days and whatnot, like the sacrifice of missing house parties or hanging out with your boys and you know what I mean? Like all of that as well. Like, like to get that goal, to get to where you need to go.
Yeah.
How many friends did you lose through that process who didn't understand and didn't appreciate what you were trying to achieve?
The thing about it, to be honest with you guys, is like growing up, I used to hang out with mostly family and
Okay.
some friends. Yeah, some friends. And then obviously with that, you obviously you start losing friends because you can't go to their parties or you can't do this, and they get upset and it's like, okay, I'm not gonna hang out with this guy. But like to this day, I still have the same like 4 or 5 friends that actually stuck by my side, win, lose, regardless. There's
Yeah.
actually one of them here right now.
That's awesome, man. And I tell you what,
Yeah.
man, I think as we get older, we realize that, we could have had 100,000 friends, but at the end of the day, we end up with like three. And
It's
those are
and
your
it's funny
guys.
because like when everything is going good, everybody's like your
Oh,
friend.
everybody has their hand out, bro.
Yeah. Everybody's like, yeah, everyone's like, oh, you're my boy, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then when you lose, and then when you retire, these people stop hanging out with you. You invite them, they only show up for a minute, or they don't even show up to your parties at all.
Yeah,
And then, yeah, trust me, I experienced it the rough way. But the ones that I continued to hang out with, when I lost my fights, when I retired, they still stuck by my side. They still invited me. They still came through.
yeah.
So those are the friends that I continue to hang out with now.
And we completely understand that as we've, start our journey on this road here. Like we plan to be the world's biggest podcast at some point. We're gonna do it.
Yeah, of course,
we're gonna do it, right? But through the beginning of what we're doing as well, we're experiencing the same thing. Oh, this is lame. Oh, you guys have no idea, blah, blah, blah. You know what I say
Yeah.
to them all? Straight up, fuck you. Leave us alone. We don't need
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's different to say it than actually mean it, because I used to say, oh, I don't care. I don't care about social. But deep down inside, you still get hurt by, oh, why doesn't this person call me? Oh, this person doesn't hang out. But like I told my wife, like, we have a second baby on the way.
Yeah.
I was like, honestly, man, I was like, to me, that's all that matters, is like my family, my close
100%.
friends.
That's it. That's it. Same here. We're on the same page here. Ronnie, I just want to ask you about Hector Lopez, man. It's very rare that a boxer will stay with the same trainer from day one. I think the only other guy that I know of that did it for the longest time was Anthony Joshua with Rob McCracken. but he's since kind of moved on to new trainers as well. How was that
Yeah.
relationship, and why did you stay with him for forever? Like, was there any point that you thought about switching it up after a loss or something, or going in a different direction?
No, not at all. Before it was just like, I've always been a firm believer of loyalty, so I decided to stick around.
Yeah.
And obviously we started this together, and we've been together since then. So that's about
So,
it.
and what sector
So
does
Ronnie, you've fought in a lot of famous arenas. Do you have any one arena in particular that you prefer to fight in that you got the goosebumps for? Madison Square Garden, Mandalay Bay, anything like that?
No, Madison Square Garden. To be honest with you guys, I wasn't 100% mental for the fight, so I wasn't able to actually like feel it, to actually be like tell myself I'm actually here. The one that I did feel good was at the Mandalay Bay. That one I remember feeling like so. I felt like I was mentally there. It's hard to explain. There's some fights that you remember everything. Like you remember walking to the arena, you remember showering before walking out, stuff like that. But then there's some fights that that you just don't remember too much. It's just a blur. And,
Mhm.
and Madison Square Garden was one of them. It was just I remember it being cold. I remember just like having this attitude that I was just like, it's whatever.
Now, you're known as a volume puncher. Is that by design, or is that just something you became? Was that what you wanted your style to be?
Not that one of my stats, but it's just to me, ever since I was in the amateurs, I just always felt like you always had to outwork your opponents.
Okay.
You know. But like lately, I have been going back to the gym and I've been working out, and there's just some things that I would personally change. Instead of volume, I think I would move around more and throw my punches harder. You know what I mean? It's like instead of just throwing 5 or 6 shots, where let's just say 3 or 4 are gonna be effective and the other ones are just wasted punches, I would do 1, 2, maybe 3 hard shots to step around. Because this game, as Mayweather put it best, this is a long game. The less wear you take, the more you last.
Yeah, I've always looked at it as like a game of snooker or pool. Even though you're shooting at the 5 ball, you're picturing where that cue ball is going to be two or
Yeah,
three shots later down the road. So it's just like you're playing that one shot to see exactly the long game.
of course, of
Absolutely.
course. So it's all
Um,
about longevity.
but being a volume puncher as well, that means your cardio must just be phenomenal, right? So I mean, if you try to change it up to kind of shorter punches and whatnot, adding more power, that's just going to benefit you more, wouldn't it?
I think it would. I think when I came back after the Azal fight, I think I was more focused on, with the exception of the Negrete fight, I think I was focused on throwing harder shots, especially against Diego De La Hoya, and I think that kind of worked out for its best. I felt stronger. I felt more conditioned. So I think that's like one thing. Like I wish I can just. That's what I always tell my brother Alexis. Like, hey, you know what? Make your shots count instead of just wasting your shots.
Mm.
Don't stay in the pocket too long. And that's something that I wish I can. If I were to come back, I think that's one of the things I would focus on the most.
Okay, okay. Um, I guess we have to touch on this one here. How hard is MJ's jab?
To what?
MJ, your last fight,
Oh yeah.
how hard does he throw?
No, I think with the exception of Robinson Castellanos, I think he hit the hardest. Yeah.
He hit the
It was
hardest
like
because
a
I was
it was like a thudding punch. Yeah. It was like
yeah.
a thudding punch because I remember I felt his punch on my glove and I was like, oh man, I gotta be careful. And then he did get me in the fourth round with a good body shot. And I was like, oh man, that really hurt. But by the 12th round, he got me with another good shot. And I was like, okay, take a knee real quick, try to recover. I took a knee. And when I came back up, he was the last couple of seconds. I didn't feel his punch like, oh man, because I was still well aware of everything. So I remember the referee stopped the fight, and I looked at the clock and I was like, what the hell, man? There's like a minute and 10 seconds left. Like, come on.
Yeah,
No, no, no.
he stopped it at 206.
Oh, it was like one. Well, it was like actually less because when I looked over, yeah, it was like a minute. Like,
Yeah, he probably had like a minute 5 left in the round, or minute 6
yeah,
left in
it
the
was like
round.
minute. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, damn.
How do you feel about that when referees do that? Like, I mean, especially in the 12th round. I mean, it's a championship round. Um, I mean, just as a fan, how would you perceive that? What would you think of stuff like that?
I
Like
mean,
me,
as a referee, that's his job, so I can't really blame him because he has to look out for the benefit of the fighter.
Yeah.
But I just felt like honesty, I wasn't like hurt, I wasn't like,
Yeah.
oh, that was a good body shot. I remember it vividly. But as far as like the head, I remember being there. I remember I was like, okay, move your head, move your head. But I was thinking to myself like, oh man, like it was hard for me to get that win back,
Yeah, yeah. I don't have the scorecards in front of me, so unfortunately I don't know how they were breaking it down. I thought you showed yourself to be really good. I mean, at the end of the day, did you feel that you had, if that didn't happen, you would have won, or how did you
No,
feel
no.
about that fight?
Honestly, I think he was up big. And my hat goes off to MJ. He's a strong fighter. Not only is he a strong fighter, but obviously, with the little amount of fights he has, he's accomplished so much. He's won 2 out of the 4 belts. So my hat goes off to him. And like I said, I can't take anything away from him. I'm not gonna sit here and make excuses because I'm not that. I'm not that type of fighter.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, 100%.
Ronnie, you've had a long, successful career. How many injuries have you dealt with and are you dealing with still to this day?
One of the injuries that really hurt was before my first loss. Actually, excuse me, after my first loss, I was seeing blurry. So they took me to the ER, right? Because they had stopped the fight, and I was like, "No, I'm okay." I was like, "I don't need to go," but I couldn't see. So when I got to the ER, they made me do a MRI, and it turned out that one of my no, no, sorry, it wasn't the Robinson fight. Sorry, excuse me, it was for Roger. It was a Roger fight. I remember I couldn't see, and they took me to go do a MRI, and it turned out that my orbital bone was broken already. But the
Ouch.
doctor, yeah, the doctor had said that it had already been fractured prior to the fight.
Oh my God.
Actually, was it it was one of those 2 fights. I want to say the Robinson Castellanos fight, maybe. I can't remember what fight it was, but the doctor said that the injury possibly already more than likely happened before the fight. Now I'm not sitting here to make excuses. That's just what the doctor had told me. That's
Wow.
one injury that I remember that I was like, oh man, like that one hurt. And then another injury too that really hurt was it turned out that my tendon on my left hand too, that was already like that was already worn out, like the tendon. So I had to strengthen my hand out for a while. And I remember I was supposed to fight. I can't remember what I was supposed to fight, but we postponed it because of that. So I had to strengthen my hand out because all the muscle tissue was gone.
Oh my goodness. So how do you rehabilitate that? I mean,
With
that's
the
your with the
with the little
ball.
putty or the
Yeah,
what is
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
with the grips, there was a
Yeah,
grips,
yeah,
the
yeah.
spider, and then the putty,
Okay.
whatever. Yeah,
And
it
how's
still
the
hurts
hand?
to this day
Oh, it
sometimes.
does. Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. Um, Gary Russell Jr. is in the amateurs. How was that?
Oh man, he was good. He was good too. He was good for that fight. Honestly, I felt like I was in the zone for that fight, so it was kind of like those moments. I remember one time I heard Oscar De La Hoya when he fought Rafael Relas, and he said that he didn't remember too much because he was in the zone. I kind of felt like that too for that fight.
Fantastic. What's sparring like? I mean, when you're training for a fight, do you spar hard? Are you a light spar? Do you-
No, no, no. We always spar hard. For the last fight, we were sparring against Bam a lot. Bam.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, yeah.
we've always sparred against like different fighters. We sparred against a lot of like good fighters. So we've never held back on sparring. But obviously, when you start getting closer to the fight, you got to start cutting back. I actually sparred Chocolatito for a while too.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
that guy's conditioned real good. So then obviously like there were times where we would spar like 4 minute rounds with like 10-15 second breaks in between each round. That
What
was a
did
killer.
what did you think of his last fight?
I didn't get to see it. I was in Disneyland with the family.
Oh wow. It was a
Yeah.
good fight. It was a really good fight.
I heard a lot of
Ronnie,
people
what's
that a lot of people thought he lost though, correct?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He did. This
I
one
thought he
he
won the
did.
second one.
No, he won the second one hands down. I think we all agree on that one. This one he did lose, but I mean, he still looked good. I mean, he's Chocolatito. What can you say about that guy, man?
Oh man, that guy's a mon. That guy puts his
oh yeah.
punches together very well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ronnie, what's it like working for De La Hoya and Bernard Hopkins? How do you describe those guys? They're larger than life figures.
Honestly, I can't really say too much because I've only spoken to Deloya a few times.
Okay.
So yeah. To me, it was always working with like Robert Diaz or Ernie, like
Mm,
those guys. Like I always like those guys are. It's always what happens behind closed doors
mhm.
Yep.
that people don't see. Like, oh man, these guys are so like Oscar De La Hoya and Bernard Hopkins. I don't really, I can't really say much because it's
Sure.
not like we would see each other, we say hi and bye and speak very little.
Mhm.
But the other guys, like Robert Diaz, Ernie, those are the type of guys that you go to breakfast with, you go to lunch, you hang out after the fights. Like
Yeah.
those guys to me is what makes Golden Boy, or
How do you see Golden Boy now? I mean, in terms of the big three that are out there, Top Rank, PBC, Golden Boy, where would you rank Golden Boy right now?
I think they're up there. I think it's them, Eddie Hearn. Um, it's kind of hard because PBC doesn't put too many shows together, so it's kind of hard. They have a lot of great fighters. Don't get me wrong, but it's just that they don't put as many shows as like Top Rank, Golden Boy, or Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn is doing
Yeah.
such a good job right now.
Yeah, I know. I mean, that was my next question. Out of the big promoters there, who do you like the most right now out of all of them? I mean, I mean, there's just so many guys right now. You got Eddie Hearns, you got Ben Shalom out of the UK as well, and then here on the state side, you got Oscar, you got Al Heyman, who's probably
Bob
the
Arum.
most Bob Arum.
I
And
mean,
he,
the thing about all these promoters is that they all have good fighters. Top Rank, I think if I'm not mistaken, they have Tyson Fury, correct?
Yeah.
they have Tyson
Yeah,
Fury right
so
now, yeah.
all these promoters have like all these really, really good athletes, all these good fighters. But the thing that's hard is just I don't know what it is. It's just hard for these fights to materialize. So there's so many fights that we can be seen, but they're not coming to they're not coming to fruition.
All right, so I'll ask you this question because you are in the boxing community, you are alongside fighters. Is it the fighters who don't want to make these fights in most instances, or is it promoters and the networks that are creating the problems?
Honestly, there's a lot of stuff that happens behind closed doors and stuff. So it's kind of a little bit of everybody in between. I mean, there's some fighters out there. Don't get me wrong. I can't think of any of them on the top of my head that decide to call out all these fighters, and then when it's time to sign the contract, they don't. But also too, it's also the terms that a lot of people don't see. It's like it's just okay. You're gonna get more money than this guy. Okay, why is that fair? We both have the same star power. I've done more or whatever. So that's one of the big things also too that has these fights that don't come together are the purse bids.
A side, B side shit.
A side, B side, who's walking out first, I read somewhere about Davis and Ryan Garcia that their fights in jeopardy because of the rematch clause or something like that.
Well, I mean, they're always going to find an excuse for something. Um, Currently, Benavides went off on Caleb Plant. Did you catch any of that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Your
You know what?
thoughts?
Honestly, man, my hat goes off to Benavides, man. This guy, and not only is he entertaining, but he's also selling the fight really good. So,
He is.
a lot of fighters they sell the fight really good, and then when the fight comes, it's kind of like a dull fight. But he's been good so far, man.
I think this is going to be a really fun fight to see here, man.
I
I'm
think so
looking
too.
forward to that.
I think Benavides is gonna take it down.
Possibly, probably. I mean, more likely than not, but I won't be surprised if Caleb could pull it out as well. So I would not be surprised if he did.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't
So
be
You
Ronnie-
surprised
guys
if
are
he
you
lost.
guys are from Canada, right? Who is your
Yep.
top 3 Canadian fighters?
Our
Better
top three
BF,
teams?
Arturo Gotti, and I guess Lennox Lewis. He's from England, but he claimed Canada. Those would be our 3 most notable fighters.
I think Lennox Lewis is one of the most underrated heavyweight champions of all time.
Absolutely, man. I think he's the only guy who's come back and
Defeated all of his
defeat-
opponents.
he defeated
Yeah.
all his opponents and he came back and took care of his losses.
Yeah, he beat Oliver McCall and Asim Rockman and actually knocked him out.
Yeah.
Both of them, and a lot of people weren't giving him credit for Vitaly Klitschko, but obviously, if you saw that fight, that fight had to be a stop. His
Yeah.
eye was
Yeah.
almost popping out.
Well, I'm gonna throw a Canadian boxer's name out to you as well, just to get even if you've heard of him. He used to be a former bantamweight champion, IBF champion, Steve Molitor. Do you recall him at all?
Yeah, I know. I know he is.
Yeah. He's been on the show. He's a good friend of the show. Your thoughts on him, his career? If you have
Steve,
any-
I've heard of the name. I just, if I'm not mistaken, he had a loss against who was it that beat him?
He lost to Carl Frampton in the UK, I believe. That was his last fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, Carl Frampton. Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
him. Yeah, he was a good fighter. Steve Moncho. Also, too, John Pascal was a good fighter.
Yeah, I was
too.
going to say that. John Pascal is one of
Yeah,
our
John
too.
Pascal was a good fighter. Gotti, obviously, it's either between Gotti or Lennox Lewis that had to be the most famous Canadian
Oh,
fighters.
yeah. Well, Lennox Lewis only was Canadian, just to clarify, because he couldn't make the British boxing team, I believe. So
Yeah,
he
that's
was
right.
already in Canada, so he got accepted to fight for the Canadian boxing Olympic team. And that's why he
I
was
think
from
he won
Canada.
the gold medal, didn't he? He won the gold medal.
Yeah, he won the gold
Yeah.
He
medal.
did.
But I mean, the only unfortunate part about Mr. Lewis, and I love him to death, don't get me wrong, if he's listening, don't take it the wrong way. He became British when it worked out for him.
I mean, who knows? Everybody has to, everybody has their side of
No,
the story, so it's kind of hard.
I just found it interesting that he found his accent again all of a sudden. That's all I'm saying. He didn't have one before. So
Honestly, that guy's one of the most underrated heavyweights of all time.
yeah, no.
So
and he
Ronnie,
was
if he
solid.
were to come out of retirement, is there any fighters that you'd be interested in fighting? Do you have your eyes set on, or just open to hearing?
Probably Nate Woods.
Nate
Nate
Woods, eh?
Woods. Yeah, maybe Ray Vargas again. Obviously I would never be able to make 122. So, anybody at 126. But like I said, I would have to see where I'm at physically,
Yeah.
because it is hard once you become a family man. It's kind of hard to find that time. Also, too, when you have a newborn, it's kind of hard to beat that away from them without missing them. So, you never know. I'm not gonna rule it out completely, and I'm not gonna, but.
Well,
knows?
we hope to see you in the ring again soon, man. We
Appreciate
really
it,
do.
I wouldn't come back unless I was
No,
really,
we
really
wouldn't
good.
want you to come back unless you're 100% there
Thank you,
mentally
thank you.
and physically, right? There's no other way to do it, in my opinion. Who do you like watching these days? Like, is there any particular fighter that you're?
Any fighter there's a bunch of fighters I like to watch. Lomachenko, he's fun. David Haney really surprised me his last fight, man. He looked really sharp. His last two fights, I take it back. He looked really good. You know who also? El Camarón, he's doing real good. He's doing really good. Yeah, I like watching him. He's really entertaining. You can never go wrong with like Tyson Fury. You know, my brother I love to watch. Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford. Who else? Trying to think. Navarrete is pretty exciting too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he didn't look that great in his last fight though.
I mean, you gotta keep in mind that that's his third weight class,
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
100%. But I mean, if he was supposed to fight Oscar Valdez in that
Yeah,
fight,
yeah.
right? And if that was the case, Oscar would have. I mean, I think he would have beat him based on the way
Oh
he was.
yeah. But also too, you guys also got to keep in mind that a fighter also elevates his game when the fight is, a lot more. Perfect example of that from the top of my head was Eric Morales. I remember Eric Morales when he would fight like people that weren't that known, he would kind of struggle with them, and then he would fight like Manny Pacquiao and he would come through and win.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no, that's a fair
Absolutely.
point.
Very fair point.
Yeah, I remember when he fought, I think Zahir Rahim. I don't know if you guys remember him.
Mhm.
Yeah, I know who he is.
Yeah, Zahir Rahim, and he lost to him, and he came back, and then he was beating Pacquiao, but then I think he ran out of gas and got stopped in the 10th, if I'm not mistaken.
No,
So-
you're right. Remember that fight?
So,
Yeah.
we're probably going to get Lomo and David Haney here pretty soon. Based on what Lomo looked like in his last fight, I feel like he's missing something. Would you agree with that? And do you think this is Haney's fight to lose? I me personally, I mean, again, I'm the guy who picked David Haney as my boxer of the year, only for the fact that he's fought only top competition. He won undisputed, defended undisputed, both off American soil, off of home soil. I
Yeah.
just don't think he got enough credit in the pound for pound. But based on Lomo's last fight, also, I don't know if that's just because of everything going on in Ukraine and what have you. He just didn't look like Lomo.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right on that sense. If anybody had won fight of the year, it was either Haney or Bebu. Sorry,
Bivol.
sorry,
Oh,
Bivol.
Bivol,
Bivol. Yeah, Bivol. He's dominating right now,
Oh,
man.
yeah.
Yeah, he took out Zerdo, right? That's the last fight. So
Yeah. Too. Also, you know who's also a lot that's doing very good, and they don't get credit are the women, man. The women are really doing good.
brother,
Yeah.
man, you're right up my alley. I am a big promoter of the female boxing scene. Alicia Baumgartner this past weekend just looked amazing. I thought that was a better fight than the Serrano fight that followed afterwards. I mean,
Yeah.
we're lining this big rematch, Katie Taylor Serrano in Ireland now. So we got that May 20th. That's huge. It's not in Cork Park, unfortunately. That's where they wanted it. But they were giving them a hassle out there, man. Eddie Hearns was talking about it. they were trying to get Crow Park, which is like their biggest stadium out there in Ireland. And the amount of money that they wanted and the amount of rights and fees that they were looking for, based on what he was saying, there would be hardly any money to pay anyone.
Yeah, honestly, man, I think that if the girls are selling out these stadiums and all these fights, I think they should get paid too. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
people. There's a lot of people that say, "Oh, you know, it's not the same." I was like, "Why isn't it the same? They're selling the same amount of seats. If I'm not mistaken, there's people tuning in, so why not pay them?"
Well, I mean, I guess
Yeah.
I guess it's with every case. So, like again, I'm a big fan of the female boxing scene,
Yeah,
right? But I also understand the economics of it. Like, if you are not filling up the stadium, then yeah, your pay grade should be accordingly. But in the case, like, I think there's only maybe a handful. We talk about this on the show all the time. There's boxing fans like us who know everyone and anyone who fights, because that's all we do is watch,
yeah,
and then consume this. But then you got the casual fan, which I feel like, this is where we get into some heated debate sometimes is, why do we have to cater everything for the casual fan? I get it, they bring that dollar and whatnot, but in terms of the casual fan, if they're not picking up on some of these names and what have you, then they're not going to get that money, obviously, right? I mean, if you look at it in boxing terms, who are the four
yeah.
guys that probably bring in the biggest numbers? Canelo, Fury, Chance. Canelo,
Those would be
Fury,
the two
Bernie,
top
right?
dogs right
Yeah.
now. Pay-per-views.
Yeah.
Right? If there's anyone who's gonna make 20 million off a fight, would be only those guys, and then it's a huge drop off if you look at the pay. Like, okay,
Yeah.
if you look at the card, Canelo gets 20 million, Caleb got 4. But then after that, everyone else is in maybe 100,000, all the way down to 4 to 5,000.
Yeah, yeah. Also, too, I think Joshua too. He sells out pretty. He makes a lot of money too.
No, Joshua,
Yeah.
yeah, he's got his
Yeah.
Franklin fight coming up as well. I mean, he sold out some big stadiums in Europe and everything. But do you think that the European fighters officially make it when they come to North America, or do they need North America to become something?
That's a good question. I mean, there's a lot of fighters, that just that
Like Conor
that
Ben.
maybe Conor Ben. Yeah, I
Conor Ben,
mean, yeah,
Chris Eubank, guys like that have a huge names and huge followings in the UK scene, but are virtually unheard of over here.
one of my favorite European fighters. I'm pretty sure you guys remember him, Nassim Hamed.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Nassim Hamed, that guy was
Yeah,
a character,
I
man.
think
The Prince.
exciting, man.
Yeah.
That guy was a character though, man. Like some of his interviews and stuff. And I love how they do things in the UK. The post-fight interviews with the fighter sitting on the apron, very cash and
Yeah,
whatnot. And there was this one interview with Nassim where he was just like, I swear to God, he was just doing things to the guy beside him that I'm surprised he didn't want to punch him in the face, but just that
yeah,
energy.
yeah. It's funny. There's like so many characters. I know he's one of the characters that stands out me because he was so flamboyant. He's
Oh
so
yeah.
yeah, he really show off. Another person too that comes to mind that he show off, not like him, but I'm trying to think. Who else was flamboyant like that besides Nassim? Because that guy used
Amir Khan.
Floyd
no,
Mayweather.
not in the same, not in the
No,
same
no,
boat.
no. I guess so, but I think you know what he
Floyd
stands
Money
alone.
Mayweather.
Yeah, money, but no, but Nassim was just this character, man.
Yeah,
Like
he
he was
Yeah, he
just.
would come out dancing. I remember when he would knock people out, he would dance and do backflips.
What wasn't it when he came to Madison Square Garden? He let his ring walk was longer than the fight. He got knocked out or something.
I remember. Oh,
Or was it
Nassim
the
Ahmed
other?
never got knocked out. Nassim
No, no,
Ahmed
no.
held him out.
Sorry. He knocked him out, but his ring walk was forever. Like, pardon me.
I
I
remember he
remember
had
the
his
leopard.
all
The,
that war with was it Kevin Kelly? That was his
Mhm.
American debut. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I think there was like what 6, 7 knockdowns in the whole fight.
yeah,
Something like that,
And
yeah.
Yeah, that
his
was
shorts were
phenomenal.
bigger than his legs, man. I remember that. Like
Oh yeah,
he
yeah.
had
He was,
right, like ring gear. How do you like? I noticed in yours, you were the really more conservative style ring gear. How do you describe the guys who fight with all the tassels, the feathers, and all that shit hanging off their trunks, man? Isn't that the distraction, or
I mean,
did you
to
ever
me,
try it?
I don't. It depends. Like, if I were to fight with them, I feel like I would trip on them. Like that's my thing is like trip on the thing, and the referee says it's a knockdown. I was like, no, I tripped. Like, what you talking about? But I don't know. I personally want to be able to do it off. And one of the things that I personally like, my last couple fights was having the shorter shorts because sometimes when they're baggy, it's uncomfortable. For me, I like them a little bit above the knee.
Yeah, you go back to the 80s style, man.
Yeah, I
Ronnie,
like that.
what do
Yeah.
you think about the celebrity boxing or boxers like Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva? Have you seen any of that? What are your thoughts on that kind of
No,
stuff?
I haven't seen. I mean, I haven't seen the fight, but I've heard of it, and obviously, a lot of people get like mad about it because that's not real boxing. But then, if they really look at it, they are putting they are putting fighters on the undercards, and they're paying them well. So I mean, if it's selling and there's fighters making money off it, why not? I mean,
Exactly.
making money off. I'm pretty sure the guys that are fighting on the undercards aren't complaining.
No,
I
no
totally
one's
agree with
complaining.
you. Totally agree.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, think about it.
I'm a bit of a purist, old school guy, just the way I am. It took me a while to warm up to Jake Paul, but after the Anderson fight, I saw how far he's come and how
Yeah.
serious he's actually taking it. So I kind of wish him the best now. Like I think he's on that path. I guess he's fighting Tommy now,
Yeah,
pretty
Tommy.
soon.
Yeah.
As a boxer, are you going for Tommy the boxer or are you going for the YouTuber and Jake Paul? Because if he beats
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
no. How do you feel about that? Like from a boxer's perspective, one of your brethrens are going into the ring with a YouTube guy. Like, you know what I mean? It's just kind of like
Yeah.
how do you think the boxers in the boxing community feel about that?
I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for them, but
Yeah, yeah,
I can just speak for myself.
yeah.
If Jake Paul gets ready and wins, why doesn't he deserve it? You know what I mean? It's like he put in the work. He's sparring. If you really think about it, at this point, he is a real fighter.
Yeah, no, and I
Yeah,
agree. And I think
yeah,
it's
he's
after the
fighting,
yeah.
he's winning. Not only that, he's getting other fighters paid as well too. And I heard that, if I'm not mistaken, there was something I read that he wants like fighters to be taken care of after the ring.
Yeah,
Yes.
Like,
he's looking to he wants to start like a fighters union.
yeah,
So he's trying to do something like that. Now I don't know how far he's come with it or where he's at with it right now, but I think he wants Anderson Silva to be a part of it. I think that was like their deal. If he lost, that he'd, come and join him on that and what have you. So
Yeah.
but what about the misfit boxing stuff, like that KSI stuff and things like that? Like that's more of a gimmick, isn't it? In your opinion?
I mean, if they're putting in the work, and obviously if they like to fight, then why not, man? It's like
Yeah.
when I first started boxing, I wasn't like, oh, I'm a real fighter. I was barely starting off. I just love to do it, and I continue to do it.
Mhm.
What's the difference between them? They like to do it, they want to do it, and they're getting paid for it, and they're
Yeah.
also getting other fighters paid for it too, and they're also bringing new crowds into the boxing. Isn't that what we need?
No, 100%.
Absolutely.
I totally
Yeah,
agree
that's
with
what I'm
you,
saying, that we need
100%.
that.
And we're only asking you this question because you are a fighter, and it's just kind of nice to get the input from a fighter opposed to us guessing what fighters think and stuff. So,
Yeah.
that's why we kind of bring those kind of questions to the
I
forefront a
mean,
little
there's
bit.
some fighters that I know that they get bothered or they get mad because obviously they're like, oh, how come I'm not making that money? It's like, well, it's different. Where if you're gonna make as much as you sell out, so
Exactly.
100%,
No, I totally agree.
100%.
you can't hate on somebody for being successful.
No, you can't.
No.
No, 100%. You can only emulate it, man. I mean, you just have to work your ass off to get what you want.
Yeah, if like I said, man, if you wanna complain about something, then do something about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, we
Yeah.
agree with you completely, man. Nothing is free in this world. You want something, you have to work your ass off for it, man. Right?
You can sit back and criticize other people and talk behind their backs, but then they're doing something that you want to do and they're making money doing it.
No, the only
They can't
person
knock him for that.
no, not at all, man.
Yeah.
Not at all.
I just wish them the best, and
Yeah.
there's also a lot of people out there that see this and they get bothered and like, oh, I hope this guy gets knocked out. I was like, nah, I don't want to see anybody get hurt,
Yeah, I know 100%. Speaking of knockouts, after your first knockout, unfortunately, I don't want to bring this up. I've read articles and I've looked into things where they say that when someone gets knocked out, it's also your body automatically, your brain is already programmed to prevent that from happening again. Do you find that to be true? Do you find that your chin becomes weaker because of that from that psychological standpoint? You know what I'm trying to get at?
No, I've heard of that, but
From your perspective, how did you recover?
Honestly,
How do
you can
you?
believe anything you want, but for me, I recovered. When I lost to Robinson, I didn't recover to one fight afterwards because I came back and I fought somebody, and it went the distance. I remember it was a boring fight, and then right after him, I fought Jason Velez, who was an undefeated fighter, and
Mhm.
obviously I came out victorious. So I just believe that you're only gonna get the results you put in for work.
Yeah, you fought Sergio Ferraz after that
Yeah,
fight,
yeah, sure, yeah, Sergio.
and you won unanimous decision. It was a 10-round fight.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was a boring fight. I remember that I did not live up to my standards and stuff like that. So I was disappointed in that fight.
Awesome. All right, so what we'd like to do right now is Chance, if you want, take it away, bro.
Yeah, I like to do a name association game. I'm gonna throw out some names of some boxers and just give me what you think comes to the top of your head about them, just to kind
Okay,
of wind up the show. All right.
okay, do it.
Manny Pacquiao,
6-time world champion.
Arturo Thunder Gotti,
One of the most exciting fighters I ever lived.
Tyson Fury,
One of the best heavyweights that people don't talk about that much. The
and you
best heavyweight. I think he's the best heavyweight right now.
totally agree. And it's a fighter you mentioned earlier, Eric Morales.
Eric Morales. I think of, you guys are not gonna believe. I always think of. Have you guys ever heard of this food called ceviche?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so there was this KO magazine that I had with him on the cover. So they did an interview about Eric Morales, and in the pictures of that interview, he was eating ceviche. So I always remember, I was like, man, that looked good.
Sugar Shane Mosley.
Oh man, I don't know, for some reason. Oh man, he was one of my biggest. He was one of my favorite fighters growing up, and I just think, like, I remember his dad. I want to say Jack Mosley. His dad used to train him, and he used to say that the way his fighting style was power boxing.
Mm.
So ever since then, I just think of power, but like all American power boxing, because he was real good.
Cool. And one more for you, Felix Trinidad.
Left hook, man. That guy has such an unbelievable left hook. You know, he was so good. I remember his all out war with Fernando Vargas. That was such a good fight.
Yeah, that was a very good fight.
Actually, I got a couple here, if I may, really quickly, only because I'm just curious to see what you think. Teofimo Lopez.
Teofimo, that's a hard one, because honestly, when I used to see him early on, he was such a knockout sensation. This guy has so much confidence. And I still think he has that confidence, but I don't know if you guys saw his last fight
We
when he
did.
was in the corner, and he's like, "Oh man, do I still got it?" So it kind of makes me think like he's kind of questioning himself. So I can relate to him. So I want to have to just say, perfect example of mentality.
Do you think Cambosos broke him?
You know what?
Do you think George broke him? George Cambosos Jr.? Do you
I
think he
don't think
broke
so.
him?
I don't think so. I don't think as a fighter somebody can break you like that. I always say this is more physical, more mental than physical. Because
How
if you really
much?
think about it, he didn't knock him out.
Yeah.
He just outboxed him. But I just think maybe he just has that mental block that's not letting him. Because I remember at one point he was so like confident. He was
Yeah.
just explosive.
Mhm.
And I personally think he can get back to it. I just think he needs to, obviously change it up, more mental than physical.
How much do you think his dad plays a role in this?
That's his dad. Only he would know, because as a fighter, as somebody looking in, I don't really know him, so I don't know how his dad is around him. But I did. I don't know if you guys ever heard this. If you guys ever saw this video of Robert Garcia.
Mm-hmm.
They were interviewing him in his gym, because I've been to his gym countless times. They were interviewing him, and he said that sometimes he said the dad has more of an effect on the fighter than the fighter, because after scoring bad, he starts telling him stuff, and he starts breaking him down mentally, and that wears a fighter going to fight. So I think a lot of truth is into it. Like, you never know what goes on in a fighter's camp until they come out and they actually say it.
Yeah, because we were talking about, we were debating about this a couple of weeks ago on an episode. We were talking about dads and, father-son tandems in boxing. And the only one that I thought had a positive effect on anything was Bill and Devin Haney. And because I mean, you look at Benavidez's dad, he gets right in there as well. And you got
Yeah.
Tio's dad who gets right in there and what have you. And just kind of like how we were just going back and forth, like, okay, what effect do these fathers have on their sons, and would their careers be better at some point if their dads weren't so involved and just their trainers were?
Who knows? I mean, my dad never coached me, so it's
Yeah,
kind of hard
yeah,
to
yeah,
say. Kind of
yeah,
hard to say, but I mean, I would have to say that yeah, there probably is, depending how the dad or what the dad says, and obviously there has to be a side effect. I just don't know
yeah,
what it
yeah.
would be.
No, 100%. All right, Ronnie, listen, man, I tell you what, man, this has been absolutely phenomenal. We've really enjoyed having you
Thank
on the
you.
show, and we would love to have you on again.
Yeah.
Just to talk shop and talk boxing. We got some great fights coming up here pretty soon. So maybe after some of those, we can get you on just to kind of break it down and get your perspective on what's going down. And again, we want to say thank you so much, and a big thank you to your missus for keeping it all together for you guys here. So you
Thank
can
you.
do this with us tonight, and best wishes to you and the family. And I hope the little one comes out strong and powerful like her papa.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it so much. And like you guys said, I hope you guys are the #1 podcast. So I wish you guys the best. Okay.
Thank you.
Keep it up, guys.
Hey,
Keep it
brother.
up, guys. And
Congratulations. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I
And you know
appreciate
what? If you can, just tell the other boys about us and let them know if they're looking to come on our show. And we're here for
for
everybody,
sure.
man. Let Bam know, let everybody know, man. Just say you
For
just met the
sure, for
two
sure.
cool.
The only advice I can give you guys,
Yeah.
is just be different. Just be different. Something
Yeah.
that people are gonna want to watch your show. Give them a reason why you guys are different than most people.
I tell
And
you what,
today,
man, Ronnie, tonight
yeah,
we gave them
today,
something. Tonight we gave them
today,
something.
I felt like, and this is just me saying, I felt like this podcast was a little different because you guys already knew some background and you guys weren't like your typical asking the same questions. So my hat goes off to you guys, man. Keep it up,
No,
guys. I wish you the
absolutely.
best.
Thank you
Okay?
very much, man. It's work, right? It's all putting that
Of
work
course,
in.
man.
Uh,
Might
you
take
know,
a while, man. It might take a while. Let me tell
no.
you guys a story because I read a lot, guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm pretty sure you guys are familiar with Tyler Perry.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so Tyler Perry, when he first started writing his screenplays, he wasn't selling. He
Yeah.
kept doing. He was paying out of pocket for his screenplays for the
Oh, you're
Medea
talking
ones.
the Medina ones. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the Medea ones. And he said that at one point he said he felt like quitting because it was costing him money. And little by little he kept going at it, and then his place started selling more, and then all of a sudden they started selling out. If you look at him now, he's not worth $500 million for nothing, guys.
Hey, man, like I
Oh,
said,
thank
nothing
you.
nothing comes easy, and the guys who work hard, the guys and girls who work hard are the ones who succeed and achieve. And we are not going to stop until the big man upstairs decides to take us home. So,
Until time's up. That's right, man. We're
that's it,
only here
right?
on borrowed time.
We're here
Ronnie,
on borrowed
thank you.
time.
You're a first class guy. We really appreciate
Thank
your
you.
time.
Yeah,
You're a gentleman.
absolutely.
Thank you so much,
Thank
brother.
you so much, brother man. And
course, man.
again, God bless, and I hope the best for you guys and a safe and happy delivery.
Likewise, guys. I wish you guys the best.
All right.
Okay, guys.
Take
Thank you,
care,
guys.
brother man. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye bye.